I'm here today with Steve Sterling, and we're looking at some of our new state-of-the-art upgrades we are doing this summer and getting us prepared for the next growing season. And we're here today in Hereford, Texas, looking at our warehousing and processing facility. And as we're looking through this facility, we also got a chance to talk about his experiences with Alta Seeds. He's been planting some of our products for the last several years and has had the opportunity to plant some of our iGrowth technology and our iGrowth sorghum this year. Steve, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your farm and how you got started with us here at Alta Seeds?
Well, right now, I guess I could say I'm on a third generation farm. My father started it. I've been doing it since I got back from college, and then my son has come back, and so we've been doing it for a long time, really have.
How many acres are you looking at right now?
We farm close to 10,000 acres altogether with irrigation and dry land.
Okay, full-time job then,
Yeah,
for sure.
full-time job.
Yeah.
Dry land's a big part of our operation.
Okay,
It really
gotcha.
is.
So
that's where our true roots came from, was more the dry land side.
So when you're looking at your farm, then if you're primarily dryland, what qualities are you looking for in a hybrid that are going to help you out in western Kansas?
What we need in southwest Kansas, a lot of people don't understand southwest Kansas. We can be extremely dry. I think our average rainfall is only 15 inches. That 15 inches comes at the right time. We can raise as good a yields as anybody in the country. We have good soil, but we hit too many long dry spells. So we need something that's tough, but yet can still yield if we get those good years where we get some rain and everything else.
Absolutely. I know as we look down like South Texas or as we move east, we can push some hybrids that are more racehorse qualities, but the products that you're traditionally planting, those are the ones that are more workhorse varieties that year in, year out are going to make a crop.
Yeah,
So.
the only place we use any of the workhorse varieties is on irrigation. But we have millions of head of cattle around. Still, as far as the irrigation part of southwest Kansas is corn.
Absolutely.
But we're getting, unfortunately, we're losing our water, and that's something we have to pay attention to. But what a lot of guys are doing now is taking maybe the varieties that you can push, and we're starting to put them on our low watered irrigation wells and getting some pretty good top end yields out of it.
We're seeing that be pretty common as well as we look at the Texas Panhandle. A lot of those wells that used to be able to run corn, they're much lower now at half or even a quarter of the capacity they used to be. Yeah. And we're seeing the same thing here.
Yeah.
So looking at our conventional products, are there any that stand out to you as some of your favorites?
Yeah, we have one that it's kind of funny, but it's been on our farms about as long as I have. Started out as 5616, it's called 1153, and the thing that was beautiful about it was the standability in Southwest Kansas because of storms we can get. We need that, and that's what I'm excited about now is you all are taking, breeding that into some newer hybrids, and hopefully we start seeing that standability, barring none, out on the market from anybody in the 1153 and a few other hybrids like that.
Absolutely. And I know one of your other favorites is 1301,
yeah, 1301, right? Yeah, 1301's king. It's the white Milo. You'll see it all over the country, but yeah, year in, year out, it can really suck it up when it's dry and still produce sorghum. And if we get a good wet year, it will nearly run with the racehorse variety. So it really gives us a good variation and flexibility in a hybrid. Others are 1201. A lot of guys like to plant early and get it off early. That's a heck of a hybrid. It really is. It's amazing what that little 60-day Milo can yield.
Absolutely.
It can be right up there with the top sometimes. I know for about 5 or 6 years there, 1201 was third in my plot every year.
Absolutely. And I know both those products you mentioned last, the 1201 and the 1301, they're both APHIX designated products.
Yes.
Is aphid pressure a big issue for you?
It has been. The last couple of years it hasn't, but we need to keep that in our pocket because, I know where it's at because of my relationship with you. And at times it's gotten awful close to us, but then never made it. But if you have a hybrid out there that's not, but what will happen, like the 1150, my old favorite, you're cutting and all of a sudden, you see these spots, you look back across the field and there's 10 acres of aphids we didn't even know we had.
Yeah.
Because they're not in our APHIX tolerance, Milos.
Yeah, and we see that a lot too, because there's certain areas, especially as we go towards drier areas, if we're down in Texas on the western side of the state, western Kansas, the Texas Panhandle, that because the yields are so variable, so dictated by the limited rainfall we have, if we have to do one application for aphids, that's oftentimes our profit margin off that acre, and we really can't afford to do that.
You're
So
exactly right.
I would say the majority of our hybrids, especially high plains, they're almost all our APHIX designated products now.
Yeah, no, that is very true. And Milo is becoming we've always been the heart of sorghum country. Mm-hmm. People in eastern Kansas and other places raise a lot of Milo, but they don't realize how much. We're true sorghum country. Yes. Guys have gone to dryland Milo or corn now especially with the Roundup Ready to help kill some of the grasses and that type of thing. But still, a year like this, even with the packages that they put into the corn, the different drought tolerant corns that are out there, still milo, the corn will die and your milo's still green. It just is. We're sorghum country.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because it has been, corn is easier to grow. And so sorghum takes a little bit more work, a little more management. And so guys have wanted to do something a little bit easier. And so segueing into that, we did launch the iGrowth technology this year. And I know you planted a little bit on your farm. As far as that technology goes, what's your impression of it? What are you using?
We really loved it. What you'll find out in our areas is we may have a couple of wet years and guys will get crazy. I mean, we'll continuous crop milo, we'll continuous crop other things. And what this allowed us to do, we were kind of in that situation the last couple of years. This came out at the perfect time. So we were able to take our iGrowth milo and try to get we generally do a third. So we have summer fallow out in Southwest Kansas. A lot of people don't even know what that is. But so we were able to plant the iGrowth milo into our continuous milo, and we were able to go out there and wipe out all of our volunteer. I was hesitant myself on whether it would kill volunteer corn. And I had actually forgot that we had a quarter and a half that was volunteer corn, or that was planted to Roundup Ready corn year before. I drove by it, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, dang. And so my son went and sprayed it. I have a good neighbor there, a good friend. Drove by it about 3 weeks later on his sprayer, and he called me. And it was kind of a funny conversation because he said, Steve, that this literally killed all the dryland corn. I said, that's awesome. He said, why didn't you sell this to me? I said, I told you about it. You just didn't think it would, because almost all of his milo acres goes behind dryland corn. So, but it was good. I mean, we both learned something because, we all read labels as farmers. We read what seed companies say, everything. But we've seen enough mistakes through our years that, and maybe part of it was our fault, but still we've seen enough that seeing is believing. And that's what this has allowed us to do. And I can tell better stories now.
Absolutely. And I know you've had some growers as well south where they got more moisture this year. They really were able to benefit from it as well. And then as we move north, Kansas is a no-till area. And so when I'm talking to my guys in Texas, they're conventional till. They're running that plow 2, 3, 4 times a year. And so it's just a different world. You guys are really benefiting from this extra control we can get with Emiflex.
We really are.
As far as what you did with Emiflex, the companion herbicide to iGrowth, what were you doing? What were you putting in the tank with it to make that successful on your farm?
Mainly it was atrazine, and I think we used oil, and then we went with a relatively high rate of water. I mean, not terribly high, but 12 to 15 gallons of water, and it did a wonderful job. I think we added some 2,4-D to it.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Now, one of the things that we've been impressed by and we've been proud to show off to our customers is the lack of crop response and the crop safety that the Emiflex gives. Oftentimes when you go out with the post-emerge program, you really burn the sorghum out there in the field. You might set it back a little bit. Did you see the same thing?
We saw nothing. I mean, you question whether you sprayed it or not. And it's kind of what people need to keep in mind, it's a little bit of a slow reaction on grasses. You can go out and spray pigweeds or something with 2,4-D or whatever you're used to using. And, by 3 hours later, you'll start seeing some of that wilting. Well, when we first did it, and a lot of people, a lot of neighbors, they call me up, man, Steve, we don't see anything. And I said, we'll give it time, because I'm not seeing anything either. I was like about ready to call you, And, but anyway, so after a week to 10 days, then you start seeing the yellowing, and then next thing you know, it's just brown. I mean, I would have never dreamed we could kill volunteer corn.
I do know it's, we see it be more slow reacting, and you do have to wait 10 days, 14 days, and it will start killing it, but it is starving that weed or that grass to death. And so it does take a little bit of time. We want to make sure that those are, actively growing weeds, and that's what's going to go ahead and take care of it. With your experience this year, Steve, is there any advice you'd give to growers as we look towards next year? Maybe a way to make this better use on their farm? Anything that they should make sure they do with this iGrowth technology to make it successful?
We did have one guy north of Dodge City that put it, the big talk that we saw and everything was taking care of the pigweeds. We didn't want it for that because, like I said, we have areas of grass that just kills milo. And so that was my initial thought, because we've never had anything to do that with. Because we're dry land, rain, we can put $800 an acre on our milo. If we don't get a rain, you're going to have weeds. It's all about timing. So what we like about it is we go with our pre, we plant our milo, and like I said, this will work if Mother Nature helps us out. But so we go in and with the atrazine and the Imiflex and everything in that tank mix, then that's on the ground. And I'm hoping that gives us a week or two that if we get a rain, then that's coming in there and helping those late season pigweeds. That's perfect scenario. Now, will that happen every year? No, it's not going to. It's just not. But if it happens, I mean, that's a home run. You know, you're taking care of your grasses. You got a second barrier there for pigweeds. That'll be beautiful. But I did have a guy, like I said, almost everybody out there, we initially wanted to see it for grasses. But I had a guy north of Dodge, had it on a circle, and he called us because, you know, he can make the rain. So he sprayed, and he called me and said it was the best pigweed control he'd ever seen.
Oh, awesome.
And that was good news to hear.
Yes.
You know,
I think it's fair to say as we give growers advice next year, let's make sure we're doing it in the right environmental conditions, that temperatures are correct, you add the right tank mix partners in there, and really let's look at it, if you're gonna go a post application, let's try to do a planned post, and that way you are getting that control. We're not trying to treat it as a rescue treatment. And if growers do that, and the growers that did that this year, we've seen a lot of success with.
Yeah, a lot of success. And there's a lot of success to come.
Yep.
I guarantee it. I've seen enough to know that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Steve.
bet.
Really appreciate having you here, and we look forward to this next growing season.
All right, sounds good.